When O.J. Simpson passed away from cancer, the NFL's silence was deafening. For someone considered a very good player, the lack of recognition left fans outraged. Meanwhile, another player, Zeron Tipton, tragically lost his life after accidentally shooting himself. His passing went largely ignored by the NFL, with no tribute to honor his hard work and talent. These stories are heartbreaking and highlight how easily players can be forgotten. Here's our list of 15 examples. Let's start with the infamous O.J. Simpson. We all know O.J. Simpson from the now popular "If the gloves don't fit, you've got to acquit" courtroom trial. But prior to that, he was arguably one of the best players for the Buffalo Bills. I mean, by the time he retired, he was the NFL's second all-time leading rusher. 9 of his 11 seasons were spent with the Bills, where he earned the nickname The Juice, and he was one of the first players to be inducted into the Bills Hall of Fame. His talent was undeniable, and dare I say, he redefined the running back position and remains one of football's greatest players. O.J. Simpson died on the 10th of April 2024 from cancer, and his death did make waves, causing a lot of reaction both within the NFL franchise and outside. But the NFL and the Buffalo Bills' silence was very loud. For someone who was arguably the Bills' best player, the lack of recognition was deafening, and fans weren't shy about pointing it out. But here's the catch. OJ's story isn't just football. It's courtroom drama, tabloid headlines, and legal controversy. While he was acquitted in the infamous trial of 1995, where he faced charges for the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, a civil suit later held him responsible, slapping him with a $33.5 million judgment he never fully paid. Topping it all, he was also convicted of 12 counts of armed robbery and kidnapping in 2008 and was only released from prison in 2017. So, to be fair, it was no big surprise when he passed that the NFL and the Bills continued keeping their distance from OJ. I mean, I also won't touch such a star with a long stick. After all, they've kept their distance from the NFL star since his infamous double homicide trial. Next, we move on to one of the NFL's most chilling and complicated tales involving Aaron Hernandez. Hernandez was a rising star for the New England Patriots, forming a powerhouse duo with Rob Gronkowski. Drafted in 2010, he quickly became a fan favorite, but his troubles off the field were so bad that his team had to cut off ties with him. In 2013, Hernandez was arrested and charged with the murder of Odin Lloyd, a semi-pro football player who was dating the sister of Hernandez's fiancée. The Patriots wasted no time cutting ties with him after the arrest, and 2 years later, he was found guilty and sentenced to life without parole. While still in prison, he was also tried for a 2012 double homicide, but was acquitted in 2017. Just days after that acquittal, Hernandez was found dead in his cell, having taken his own life. When Hernandez died, there was no league-wide acknowledgement, no tribute, no moment of silence, and no one could blame them. For the NFL, it seemed easier to let his story quietly fade. Fans, however, still debate his legacy, caught between his undeniable talent and the dark chapters of his life. In the end, Hernandez became a cautionary tale the league was too uncomfortable to confront directly. No one really expects a football star to be a mass shooter. Sadly, this was the case for the next NFL star who got ignored by the league and decided to carry out a mindless crime. Philip Adams. Adams, during his time in the NFL, played for different teams during his career. While his time on the field wasn't star-studded, he still carved out a spot in the league, a dream so many chase. In April 2021, a devastating tragedy unfolded in Rock Hill, South Carolina, when Philip Adams carried out a mass shooting that left 6 people dead, including 2 young children. Adams then turned the gun on himself, sending shockwaves through the community and beyond. The incident sparked intense scrutiny and debate, especially when reports later revealed that Adams had been battling severe mental health issues. Further examination confirmed he was suffering from advanced chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, a degenerative brain condition caused by repeated head trauma. CTE has been a recurring concern for NFL players due to the high-impact nature of the sport, raising questions about the league's responsibility toward its athletes. Despite these revelations, the NFL made no public acknowledgement of Adams or the circumstances surrounding his death. Critics were unsurprised, citing the league's history of sidestepping uncomfortable conversations about player safety and brain injuries. However, this silence ignited controversy among fans. While many condemned Adams' horrific actions, some argued that completely ignoring his death also meant turning a blind eye to the broader issue of brain injuries in football. Next in this list is the tragic tale of Glenn Foster. Glenn Foster Jr.'s story is one of those that really makes you pause. Last December, he tragically died while in police custody after a high-speed chase, sparking serious questions about what really happened while he was in custody. Glenn, who had a promising career both in college and the NFL, deserves more attention than he's gotten, especially from the NFL itself. While the NFL has stayed quiet about his death, his high school, Mount Carmel, really stepped up to honor him. They held a tribute during a Friday night football game almost a year after his passing. His number 93 jersey was retired, and his family and friends wore shirts that said, "Justice for Glenn Foster Jr." It was a heartfelt moment, and his parents proudly held up his retired jersey, showing just how much Glenn meant to them and to the community. Glenn had made his mark in football, first at the University of Illinois, where he recorded 73 tackles and 4 sacks. He then played for the New Orleans Saints for 2 seasons, appearing in 17 games as a defensive end. He wasn't just a player, he was a part of his team, his school, and his community. So it feels like a punch in the gut that while Mount Carmel honored him with a proper tribute, the NFL didn't seem to acknowledge his death at all. A little public recognition or tribute could have gone a long way, but instead, Glenn's passing has largely been ignored by the very organization he once called home. It just makes you wonder why his NFL family didn't step up. Next up is Marv Marino, a name that carried weight both on and off the football field. Born in 1939, he had a brief stint in the NFL as an offensive lineman for the Oakland Raiders back in the 60s, but his real legacy wasn't built on the field. It was carved out in gyms and training fields as one of the most innovative strength and conditioning coaches football had ever seen. If you've ever heard of athletes obsessing over nutrition and tailored workouts, you might want to thank Marv for that. He was way ahead of his time, focusing on optimizing athletic performance before it was mainstream. His methods were intense, and some might say controversial, especially when it came to training his son, Todd Marinovich. Todd was famously groomed by Marv from an early age to be the perfect quarterback. While Todd's story didn't unfold the way Marv had envisioned, Marv's influence on how players prepare for the game can't be denied. He introduced techniques and training philosophies that shaped modern sports science, helping athletes push boundaries. Marv passed away in 2020 at 81 after battling Alzheimer's disease, a heartbreaking end for someone who spent his life focused on the human body's potential. Despite his contributions to football and athletics, the NFL didn't make much noise about his passing. It's a bit ironic, given how many players today benefit from the systems he pioneered. Perhaps his story was overshadowed by controversies, but for those who understand his impact, Marv Marinovich's legacy is anything but forgettable. From winning the famous Heisman Trophy in college to having a tragic ending, this is the story of Rashan Salam. Rashan Salam was a standout running back in college, winning the Heisman Trophy in 1994 as a star for the University of Colorado. I mean, his skills and talent on the field were undeniable, and he entered the NFL in 1995 as a first-round draft pick for the Chicago Bears. Salam had a solid start to his professional career. He even rushed for over 1,000 yards in his second season with the Bears, and he looked like he was on the path to becoming a major NFL star. But things weren't always easy for him. He struggled with injuries and the pressures that came with being a high-profile player. Despite his talent, he wasn't able to find long-term success in the NFL and eventually retired in 2001. Sadly, Rashan Salam's story took an even darker turn. In 2016, he passed away from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
The autopsy confirms what many suspected. CU's only Heisman Trophy winner, Rashan Salam, killed himself.
When his death was ruled a suicide, it raised serious questions about how much the game had affected him. After all, Salam had been open about his struggles with depression, something that many former players deal with, but the league didn't give much recognition to his passing. While the NFL has made progress in recent years regarding player safety and mental health, it's hard not to think that Salam's death should have sparked more attention and change. After all, he was a Heisman winner and a talented running back, and his death was an important moment for the league to reflect on its responsibility to its players. Sadly, Rashan Salam didn't get the recognition or tribute he deserved, with his story being one of a man who gave his all to the game but was left to struggle in silence. This next player was called Tom McCale, and his career was marred by injuries that blew him into oblivion, a world where he didn't matter to the league. McCale was a linebacker for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers during the 1990s. While he wasn't a superstar like some other players, he was a steady contributor to the team, known for his toughness and determination on the field. Sadly, McCale's career was marred by injuries, like so many other players, which led him to rely heavily on painkillers to manage the pain. Over time, this turned into an addiction that he couldn't shake. After his retirement, McCale struggled with his personal battles, and in 2008, 2008, his life came to a tragic end when he died from an overdose linked to his painkiller addiction. It's heartbreaking to think about how McCale, like so many players, faced the physical and mental toll that football left on his body, only to be left to battle addiction alone. His death didn't get the kind of public tribute from the NFL that you might expect, especially since the league didn't offer any formal acknowledgement of his passing, which feels like a missed opportunity to raise awareness about the challenges players face after they leave the field. The next football player is the main character in one of NFL's most heartbreaking stories, a character who, after his death, was mildly acknowledged and put in the backseat of nothingness: Daryl Stingley. Daryl Stingley was a talented wide receiver for the New England Patriots, and his life changed forever on August 12, 1978, during a preseason game against the Oakland Raiders. At just 26 years old, he went up for a pass and took a brutal hit from Raiders safety Jack Tatum. The collision broke his neck, leaving him paralyzed from the shoulders down. For nearly 3 decades after that hit, Stingley became a symbol of resilience in the face of tragedy. He didn't wallow in the unfairness of it all. Instead, he rebuilt his life. He authored a book titled Happy to Be Alive and devoted himself to helping others. In 1993, he launched a non-profit foundation aimed at supporting inner-city youth in Chicago, the city where he was born and raised. Stingley also served as the Patriots' executive director of player personnel, staying close to the game he loved, even though it had taken so much from him. He remained an inspiration, operating his electric wheelchair with limited mobility in one arm, showing the world that even when life knocks you down, you can still find a way forward. Sadly, in 2007, Stingley passed away at 55 due to complications related to his paralysis. His death was acknowledged by the Patriots and those who knew him, but the NFL didn't go all out with a tribute or event. It felt like a quiet farewell for someone who had left an indelible mark on the league, not just for the tragedy, but for the grace and determination with which he faced it. I mean, Stingley's legacy goes beyond football. He showed us the importance of grit, hope, and giving back, even when life doesn't turn out the way you planned. This next ignored player was a victim of complications that were partly the NFL's fault: Ray Easterling. Ray Easterling was a safety for the Atlanta Falcons in the 1970s. Easterling was known for his hard-hitting style and relentless determination. He was part of the legendary Grits Blitz defense in 1977, which set an NFL record for the fewest points allowed in a season, a record that stood for years. After his football career ended in 1979, Easterling shifted gears and built a successful financial services company. On the surface, it seemed like he had transitioned seamlessly into life after the NFL, but things weren't as they appeared. Like many players of his era, Easterling endured years of punishing hits, and the effects began to catch up with him. Over time, he struggled with depression, insomnia, and eventually dementia. His wife, Mary Ann, described how he lost his ability to focus and connect with others, a devastating decline that spanned 2 decades. In 2012, Easterling took his own life, succumbing to the overwhelming toll of what was later linked to chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. His death was a gut punch, not just to those who knew him, but to the NFL's growing reputation as the league faced mounting criticism over its handling of concussions and brain injuries. Easterling had been one of the first players to sue the NFL over its alleged failure to protect and educate players about the risks of repeated head trauma. His passing fueled debates about player safety, and his widow, Mary Ann, became an advocate for change. Moving on, here's the story of Mike Webster, who suffered largely due to the stress from the game. Mike Webster, nicknamed Iron Mike, was the ultimate Pittsburgh Steelers legend. As the anchor of the Steelers' offensive line, he was a Hall of Fame center, a 4-time Super Bowl champion, and an emblem of grit and toughness during the team's iconic 1970s run. But Webster's life after football was far from the fairy tale many would expect for a player of his stature. Webster retired in 1990 after a grueling 17-year NFL career, but the years of bone-crushing hits left their mark. He suffered from chronic pain, depression, memory loss, and erratic behavior, symptoms that were later linked to chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, a neurodegenerative disease caused by repeated head trauma. His decline was heartbreaking. At one point, Webster was reportedly living in his truck, struggling to make sense of the world around him. In 2002, Webster died at the age of 50 from a heart attack, though his physical and mental health had been deteriorating for years. His death became one of the first high-profile cases to shed light on the connection between football football and CTE. His brain was studied by Dr. Bennett Omalu, whose findings would ignite a firestorm about the NFL's responsibility to its players. Despite Webster's monumental impact on the game and his role in one of football's greatest dynasties, the NFL's response to his death was underwhelming. There was no grand tribute, no league-wide acknowledgement of the sacrifices Webster and countless others had made for the sport. Instead, his death was a quiet moment in the shadows of the league's roaring success. This next story is very similar to Ray's, but unlike Ray, who faced the stress of the game, this player faced troubles with the authorities, earning him a one-way ticket to being ignored by the NFL. Justin Streelchick. Justin Streelchick's story is a tough one to talk about. He was an offensive lineman for the Pittsburgh Steelers from 1990 to 1998, known for his versatility and fiery passion on the field. Standing at 6'6" and over 300 pounds, Justin was the kind of player you couldn't miss, both for his sheer size and his tenacity. But off the field, things took a dark turn. After retiring from football, Justin's life spiraled into a mix of struggles that many believe stemmed from chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE. It's the same brain condition that has haunted the NFL for years. His friends and family noticed changes in his behavior, unpredictable moods, erratic decisions, and even paranoia. It's heartbreaking because the very game he loved so much might have contributed to his decline. In 2004, things came to a tragic end. Justin led police on a 40-mile chase in New York, driving over 90 mph and ignoring warnings to stop. The chase ended when his truck collided head-on with a tanker truck, killing him instantly. Tests later revealed brain damage consistent with CTE, making it clear he had been battling an invisible enemy. What's sadder is the NFL's silence. No formal tribute, no acknowledgement. The NFL wasn't exactly eager to link Justin's story or any player's struggles to the game itself. Meanwhile, his family and those close to him have kept his memory alive, raising awareness about CTE and its impact. With crime comes punishment, and in this next player's story, he really did deserve being ignored by the NFL. After all, he murdered his girlfriend, Jovan Belcher. Jovan Belcher's story is one of the most tragic and complex in NFL history. A linebacker for the Kansas City Chiefs, Jovan seemed to have it all on the surface: a promising career, a family, and teammates who thought the world of him. But in December 2012, his life unraveled in the most devastating way. In an unthinkable sequence of events, Jovan fatally shot his girlfriend, Cassandra Perkins, at their home and then drove to the Chiefs' practice facility. There, he thanked his coaches for all they'd done for him before taking his own life in front of them. The tragedy sent shockwaves through the sports world and left everyone asking, how did this happen? The Chiefs were left to navigate an impossible situation. The day after the murder-suicide, they played the Carolina Panthers and managed to pull off a win. But Jovan's presence was impossible to ignore. His locker was left untouched, his number 59 jersey still hanging there. Players like Eric Winston and Brady Quinn spoke openly about the emotional toll, describing the struggle to reconcile their teammates' actions with the person they thought they knew. Despite the personal grief felt within the team, the NFL chose not to publicly honor Jovan, and let's be honest, it's understandable why. A public tribute to someone who committed such a violent act wouldn't have sat well. Instead, the league maintained silence, briefly acknowledging the incident in statements. When you are a Hall of Famer, everyone wants to take pictures or hang out with you, but that was not the case for this next NFL star, Ken Stabler. Ken Stabler, or the Snake as fans love to call him, was a football legend in every sense of the word. As the quarterback for the Oakland Raiders, he was the kind of player who made you want to grab a beer and cheer until your voice gave out. Known for his laid-back attitude and gutsy plays, he led the Raiders to a Super Bowl victory in 1977 and earned himself a spot in the hearts of fans everywhere. But when Ken passed away in 2015 from cancer, Stabler didn't get the grand send-off you'd expect for a Hall of Famer. Sure, there were mentions here and there, but for a guy who had such a massive impact on the game, it felt underwhelming. This is a man who wasn't just a player, he was a personality. He represented the rebellious, larger-than-life spirit of the Raiders during the 70s, and yet, when he passed, the tribute didn't match the legacy. Some say it's because Ken had a complicated history with the league. He was known for pushing boundaries, both on and off the field, and wasn't exactly the poster boy for NFL decorum. Add to that the fact that his Hall of Fame induction came posthumously, and it almost feels like the NFL took its time recognizing what everyone else already knew. Ken Stabler was a giant of the game, from being a player who dominated the field and put fear in the minds of opponents to being largely ignored by the NFL. This next player really had a tough time. His name was Javon Walker. Javon Walker's story is one of both brilliance and heartbreak. He was a wide receiver who could light up the field, especially during his early days with the Green Bay Packers. Back in 2004, Walker had a breakout season, pulling in over 300 yards and 12 touchdowns. He was the kind of player defenses hated to face, with a rare mix of speed, hands, and swagger. But like many NFL careers, his was filled with ups and downs. After a knee injury in 2005, his time in Green Bay ended on a sour note, and he found himself bouncing around the league, playing for Denver and Oakland. Off the field, things weren't much smoother. Walker made headlines for being the victim of a robbery in Las Vegas in 2008, a traumatic incident that seemed to haunt him in the years that followed. In 2023, Javon tragically passed away in a fatal accident. It was a heartbreaking end to a life that had been marked by talent and turmoil. And yet, the NFL's acknowledgement of his death was, well, minimal. For a player who once thrilled fans and put up highlight reel plays, it felt like he was left out in the cold. Some say this had to do with his troubled post-football life, while others think the league just doesn't do well with handling the legacies of players who don't fit the perfect narrative. Either way, fans of the game remember the Javon Walker who soared down the sidelines and brought excitement to Sundays. His journey was complicated, but his talent was undeniable, and that's the memory worth holding on to. Now, accidents do happen in life, and we can't exactly predict them. This was the case for this next football star, as all it took for his efforts on the field to go largely unnoticed was one freakish accident. Zeron Tipton. Zeron Tipton's story is one of those promises cut tragically short. He wasn't the flashiest name in the NFL, but he had heart and hustle, and that's what made his journey so inspiring. Coming out of Central Michigan University, where he was a standout running back, Tipton worked his way into the NFL as an undrafted free agent with the Indianapolis Colts in 2014. He made the most of his opportunities, contributing in both the regular season and playoffs. While his stats may not leap off the page, Tipton carved out a spot on the team with grit and determination. He even scored a couple of touchdowns during his time in the league, moments that surely meant the world to him. But after his NFL career ended in 2015, things took a heartbreaking turn. In 2016, Tipton tragically lost his life at just 26 years old after accidentally shooting himself while handling a gun at a car dealership. It was a freak accident that left his family, friends, and former teammates in shock. What's even sadder is how the NFL responded, or rather, didn't respond. Tipton's passing went largely unacknowledged by the league, leaving fans and loved ones to wonder why such a talented and hard-working player didn't get even a small tribute. Maybe it was because he wasn't a household name or didn't have a long career, but that doesn't make it right. Zeron Tipton's life and career might have been brief, but they mattered. He proved that determination could take you far, and his story is one that deserves to be remembered, not just by those who knew him, but by the league he gave his all to. So, if you found this video fascinating, click on any of the cards on your screen to check out more jaw-dropping stories.